In the heart of the galaxy, there was a shining ring of stars, and on one of those stars sat the great council of the 13 dominant species. It was a place of power, of laws, of old truths, where planets rose or fell with a single vote. The chamber was tall and wide, with silver walls and blue lights, shaped like waves of energy, and in the middle of it all stood a small figure with 2 legs, 2 arms, and eyes full of fire, a human. Ambassador Keller from Earth stood alone on the council floor, his voice clear, but his words buried in the sound of laughter. Aliens of all shapes and sizes filled the seats above him, methane breathers with green skin and wide mouths, ammonia breathers with armored suits, and soft voices, plasma breathers, who shimmered like fire behind glass walls. None of them listened, not to him. He spoke of treaties broken and colonies attacked. He asked for justice, for support, for unity. But the moment he said oxygen breathers have rights to, the room shook with mockery and amusement. One plasma lord clapped slowly. One methane elder whispered something that made the others snort. The words oxygen breathers had become a joke to them, like calling someone mud eater or rock chewer. They saw humans as weak, as soft as children lost in a war of giants. The council speaker, an old being with 12 eyes and a voice like falling stones, raised a hand and called for silence, his voice calm and empty. He said the council will consider Earth's request, and a decision will be shared in 4 moon cycles, which meant nothing really. It meant delay. It meant forget. It meant we do not care. Keller walked away from the podium, his face unreadable, his hands tight behind his back, his suit clean and sharp, but his heart was heavy. Outside the council hall, 2 guards moved to escort him away, while inside the chamber the real talk began. Quiet whispers loud enough for the right ears. A small group of warlords gathered behind shaded glass, near the edge of the room, far from the cameras, far from law. There were 4 of them, all dressed in black robes. One wore a mask made from bone, one had a crown of red lights, and one had no face at all, only a shimmer where a face should be. They had ruled the outer arms of the galaxy for many cycles, long before Earth had discovered faster than light travel, long before humans had dared speak to the stars. One warlord leaned forward and hissed, "The humans talk too much," and the others nodded. "They bring noise and trade and culture and weakness, and worse, they believe they matter." Another one spoke slow and sharp. "Earth should be removed from the council. They do not belong. They are not evolved enough. They are not stable. They are not obedient." The faceless one said in a voice that came from nowhere, "Their growth is fast, too fast. Their minds are fire and chaos. We cannot allow fire to spread, not here, not now, not when our grip is so close to perfect." The warlords agreed in silence. Only the hum of the walls around them filled the space. A decision was made without vote, without record, without debate. The plan would begin soon. Small, quiet steps. At first, perhaps a pirate raid on a trade route, perhaps a lost cargo vessel, perhaps a virus sent to their food supplies. As the warlords left the chamber, one of them paused at the doorway, turned his head slightly, and whispered to the others with a small, cold laugh, "They will never see it coming." What the warlord did not see was the young man, standing in the shadows, not far behind human guard in training, not important to most, not seen, not remembered. His name was Jalen. His eyes were sharp and dark and filled with a quiet fury. He had heard every word, every whisper, every threat. Jalen had grown up on Titan Base under the shadow of alien rules and alien tech. His father had worked in the mines. His mother had cleaned embassy halls. He had watched as humans were pushed aside, ignored, dismissed, as if they were background noise, as if they were nothing more than tools. And now he had heard what the powerful really thought, what they planned, what they feared. He turned and walked away, no anger on his face, only purpose. He would not speak to the ambassador, not yet, not here. He would carry the truth in silence. He would share it with someone who would understand, someone who had seen the same walls and heard the same laughs and carried the same fire inside. Jalen walked through the long silver halls of the station, his boots quiet, his heart loud. Above him, the council continued their games, their talks, their lies. But below the surface, something had shifted, something small but sharp like a crack in glass. Far away on Earth, the stars still looked beautiful to those who watched from green hills and blue oceans. But soon, very soon, they would learn that stars can also burn, and humans, though soft and small and new, can burn with them. In the darkness of the council station, a human ear had heard the voice of the enemy and remembered it. And soon the voice of humanity would rise, not with a whisper, not with a vote, not with a plea, but with something older, something louder, something the galaxy had forgotten. Something like war. The sun over Titan Base never truly rose, it only glowed behind thick clouds of gas and dust, casting long orange shadows across the metal streets. The humans living there had learned to live with low light, low warmth, and high tension. The colony was growing fast, but so were the eyes watching it from beyond the stars. Jalen walked with steady steps down the hallway of the intelligence wing. His clearance was low, his job even lower, but his ears had heard something too dangerous to ignore. He replayed the whispers in his head, the words of the warlords, their quiet laughter, their hidden threats. He knew he could not carry this alone. At the end of the hall was a room with no name on the door. Inside sat a woman older than most at the base, with gray streaks in her short black hair and a stare that had seen too much. Her name was Commander Hale, and she did not believe in luck or mercy, only in preparation and survival. Jalen entered the room without knocking. The door hissed closed behind him. Hale looked up from her screen, ready to scold until she saw his face. She waved him closer and listened as he told her everything, not skipping a single word, not hiding his fear, but also not drowning in it. When he finished, she stayed silent, her fingers tapping the table once, twice, then stopped. She asked him one question: "Were you seen?" And when he shook his head, she nodded slowly and said, "Good." Outside the walls of the base, ships came and went, transports full of supplies, scouts returning from deep space, and one heavy freighter from Earth carrying not goods, but people. New blood for the colony, engineers, doctors, and soldiers among them. One name stood out to Hale. When she checked the manifest, Elias Dre, former Marine, quiet, record high marks, no promotions by choice. She sent for him without delay. Elias arrived an hour later, tall, broad, with eyes that scanned every corner of the room. Before sitting, he listened to Hale without blinking as she shared what Jalen had overheard. His face gave away nothing, but when she asked, "Can we trust you?" his answer was simple always. That night, 3 humans met in a quiet room. Jalen, Hale, Elias. They planned not a war, not yet, but a warning. They would prepare Earth without alerting the Council. They would strengthen defenses without saying why. They would send coded messages to allies among the lesser Council races, those who also fear the warlords but lacked a spark of rebellion. The plan was to wait and to watch and to be ready, but fate did not wait. Fate had other plans. 2 weeks later, a cargo ship from Earth was destroyed just outside the Saturn gates. The cause listed as engine failure, but no debris matched the report. The bodies were gone. The black box missing. Hale reviewed the logs and found signals masked inside energy waves, frequencies only military-grade sensors could detect. It was no accident. It was a test, a warning, a message sent by shadows. Elias met with the base defense team. No alarms, no panic, just quiet drills, quiet upgrades, shields, sharpened scanners. Tuned pilots rotated and trained in silence. The base became a lion pretending to sleep. Jalen, meanwhile, was sent back into the shadows, this time not to listen, but to plant seeds. He met with workers, pilots, cooks, anyone who would listen to a quiet truth: the warlords are coming, and they think we are nothing. He shared no proof, only his voice and his fire, and for some it was enough. Back on Earth, the leaders debated in secret rooms. The Council delegate was recalled under excuse of health. The military sent scouts, wrapped as scientists. The colonies on Mars, Europa, and Ganymede were told to double their drills and log all alien traffic, even trade ships, even friendly ones. The humans began to move not with noise, but with purpose. They knew they were being watched, and they wanted to appear slow, soft, unready, while behind every smile, every handshake, there was training, upgrading, building a storm behind curtains. The warlords saw none of it. They believed their plan was unfolding well. Another freighter vanished near Jupiter. Its last message scrambled, but one word broke through attack. This time Earth did not wait. Hale sent word to the Council, a formal complaint delivered with cold precision. The Speaker of the Council gave a gentle reply: "We regret the loss. We hope for peace, but nothing more." Peace was not coming. Deep in the core of Titan Base, a room was opened that had not been touched since the colony's founding. It held weapons not shown in any registry, armor not worn in public, drones too smart to fly freely under alien laws. Elias stood before the old vault and smiled without joy as it opened. The time for pretending was ending. Elsewhere, a new figure appeared on the radar, a ship not marked by any faction, sleek, dark, moving without sound. It watched from afar, taking notes, whispering back to its masters. The humans saw it. They tracked it. They let it watch, because soon it would see something it could not explain. One night, Jalen sat on the roof of the barracks looking at the stars. They did not twinkle here. They burned steady sharp like 1,000 watching eyes. Beside him sat an engineer named Tessa, who asked him if he really believed war was coming, and he said, "Not coming already here, just not loud yet." She nodded and said, "Then we make noise first." He looked at her and smiled, not with joy, but with readiness, and said, "Yes, we will." Far above, the galaxy kept turning the council, kept talking the warlords, kept laughing. But below, in silence and steel, the oxygen breathers were preparing to remind the stars that fire needs oxygen to burn. And humans breathe fire. Darkness filled the void between the moons of Saturn and the stars beyond, but Titan Base was not sleeping, its lights dimmed to hiding mode, and its defenses quietly moved into new formations. Silent ships trained their weapons on shadows that drifted too close, and deep inside, its heart, a plan was forming, one that would change everything. Elias stood in the command chamber alone. His eyes scanned the silent displays before him. Every ship, every line a path, every flicker a warning. He did not speak because there was nothing left to say. The game had begun, and silence was the only safe language now. Across the base, engineers worked without orders because they already knew what had to be done. Armor was polished, code was updated, and drones shaped like insects moved through vents, checking systems, calibrating responses, testing firewalls. They called it maintenance, but they knew it was war prep. Jalen moved through back corridors of the diplomatic tower. Dressed like a courier with a datapad in his hand, he met quietly with a Syriac named Malvin, a long-limbed amphibian with soft silver skin and large red eyes, who blinked once to show fear, twice to show truth. Malvin blinked twice and whispered that the council was being manipulated, that certain voices were being silenced, that a list of planets was being made and Earth was on it. Jalen did not ask for proof. He just listened and thanked Malvin with a quiet nod, then disappeared into the steam vents without a sound. On Earth, a different game was unfolding. Hidden under the mountains of Colorado, an old bunker came alive for the first time in decades. Men and women in plain uniforms moved in silence, dragging crates, unlocking vaults, restoring machines that hummed with old purpose. The program had no name on paper, but those inside called it Ember Protocol. The goal was simple: prepare for extinction and prevent it at any cost. Ember had been made long ago, during the first contact days, when humans were not sure if the galaxy wanted peace or conquest. Now that answer had returned, and Ember was waking up fast. Meanwhile, the council chamber floated above a gas giant in a station shaped like a silver ring. Its walls glowed with light from a burning core that no one could touch, and its halls echoed with languages both spoken and felt. Inside the grand chamber, the warlord smiled with mouths full of sharp teeth and eyes that hid poison. They whispered behind coded screens, spoke in layers and tones humans could not hear or mimic. But one thing remained clear: they thought they had already won. They saw humans as simple tools, not threats, not rivals, not equals. They would learn. Back on Titan Base, Hale met with Elias in the sealed command bunker. Under layer after layer of shielding, both of them stared at a screen where images flickered slowly, showing troop movements, showing starship launches, showing patterns that were not patterns unless you looked with war-trained eyes. They saw it: the build-up, the plan, the trap being built around Earth and its colonies. Hale tapped the screen once and said, "We go dark," and Elias replied, "Already started." Titan Base shut down its beacons, its trade signals, its external lights. It went quiet as a tomb, but inside it buzzed like a hornet hive. Every gun warmed, every pilot trained, every officer briefed and ready. The first spark came sooner than expected. A scout ship from Titan was destroyed near the Neptune belt. Its wreckage drifted into the rings of Uranus, without a signal, without a fight, just gone. The council called it an accident. Humans called it a message. They answered. A convoy of Earth medical ships moved toward Mars with no weapons, no fighters, only doctors and aid bots, and children on board. Halfway, their strange signal appeared, followed by static, then nothing. The humans had hidden a stealth corvette behind the lead ship, and it recorded everything: the ambush, the beam, the explosion, and the warlord ship that flew away before checking if anyone saw. Now they had proof, and it was time to act. The Ember Protocol activated its final phase. Every Earth ship received a single burst transmission: load code Ember and vanish. Across the solar system, freighters went dark. Research stations locked down colonies, turned off their beacons, and cut all open links. Humans disappeared in less than an hour from every map that aliens used to watch them. And then the signal came back. One ship, one message. Oxygen breathers no more. Titan Base launched its first wave of drones, followed by a dozen silent fighters that vanished into black space on ghost rides. They did not speak, they did not broadcast. They just flew into the dark with purpose and coordinates that promised fire. Inside the council chamber, panic stirred for the first time. Warlords shouted in languages too fast for translators. Diplomats scrambled to spin lies, while lesser species backed away from the table, unsure who to trust or fear. Then the screen changed. A live feed from Titan. Elias standing before the star banner. He said nothing, just stared into the lens with a gaze that froze blood in alien veins. Then the feed cut, and a warning echoed through the system. You hunted us. You underestimated us. You forgot that fire needs oxygen. We are the oxygen. We are the flame. The humans are coming. And the warlords finally stopped laughing. Titan Base watched the stars like hunters in the dark, every light on its deck dimmed to the color of blood, every screen glowing with quiet purpose. Its soldiers moved without sound, without wasted steps, without fear. They were not many, but they were ready, and readiness was power now. In the outer rim of Neptune's space, a convoy drifted, broken and cold pieces of hull scattered across silence like ashes from a funeral pyre. The ship, called Mercy Angel, had carried food and medicine and life, its name now a ghost on silent lips burned out by warlords who called it practice. But something had watched the death of Mercy Angel, something that did not blink, something that did not forget. Inside the council secure chamber, the warlords gathered their teeth, showing their claws tapping against the stone table. Some wanted full invasion, some wanted silence, some thought humans were bluffing, still laughing, still blind. But one voice rose above the noise, a shadow, called Lurzak, a being of pure gas, who floated inside a containment orb. His words cold and sharp. He said, the humans have changed, and now you must decide if you will change too or vanish. Back on Earth, the Ember Protocol reached Phase 5. Sleeper agents hidden in alien markets, on forgotten moons, and deep stations woke from their silence. They dropped their covers, stepped into shadows, opened crates with strange tools not for sale, not for peace, tools that hummed with coded lights, and whispered old names like vengeance and resolve. One agent, named Kara, moved through the market city of Veltrin, disguised as a traveling mechanic. She left behind a trail of locked doors, fried systems, and one dead ambassador who once ordered the death of human children during a food raid. He died staring at a message burned into the wall. Oxygen, breathers remember. Back at Titan, Elias stood before a wall of names, each one carved into steel, each one someone lost, someone taken, someone forgotten. He traced his hand across a name that glowed brighter than the rest. His brother lost in the first attack, long before Earth understood the game, long before they saw the trap. Now he understood. Now he remembered. A message pulsed across human space, a code known only by a few, 3 tones, followed by a flash, followed by silence. It meant open the box. Every leader, every captain, every hidden cell opened a box older than their rank, older than their birth. Inside was a crystal chip glowing with red light, and a phrase engraved into the surface burned without warning. No one asked questions, no one hesitated. In the shadow of Mars, a mining colony disappeared, not destroyed, not attacked, just gone from scanners, shielded so deeply nothing could touch it again. Its people were safe beneath miles of rock, surrounded by old cannons and newer traps. And when alien scouts came, they found only dust and silence, and a warning spike driven into the ground shaped like a human fist. Near Jupiter's moons, a ship called Deliverance rose from under Europa's ice, shaped like a blade, painted black, its crew silent, its engines built for speed and pain. It carried no flags, no greetings, just a signal that pulsed once and vanished. It flew into the dark, leaving fear in its wake. The council called emergency session for the first time in 1,000 years. Warlords arrived, guarded, panicked, sweating through scales and wires. They spoke in short bursts, no longer mocking, no longer confident, but divided. Some wanted truce, some wanted retreat, some wanted extermination, but none agreed and none were ready. That was when the lights went out. In the great chamber of power where stars danced across the ceiling and truth was spoken, through fire, a single human voice echoed from hidden speakers, the voice of Elias, speaking 12 words. "We are not prey. We are the storm that burns the hunters." Then nothing. When the lights returned, a screen flickered to life, showing Titan again, showing the wall of names now glowing with fire, and under it stood every human leader dressed in armor of black, and silver their eyes, cold their stances firm. They said nothing, because their silence was louder than war. Above them the sky cracked, as the first human fleet decloaked ships, shaped like daggers lit with plasma engines, moving with purpose and silence. They surrounded the council's strongholds, not firing, not speaking, just there watching. The warlord sent a fleet to intercept, and that fleet never returned, not even wreckage, just a blank spot in space where echoes died. Inside, Titan Hail moved through operations, every officer focused, every hand ready, every second measured. They had no music, no chatter, just the sound of war breathing between them, a low hum, a rising tide, waiting to break. A message came in from the outer colonies, encrypted in 5 layers, approved by 3 keys. It showed the enemy's map, the final piece of the trap, a warlord stronghold on the dark edge of known space, where they kept prisoners, where they broke species, where they prepared to break Earth next. Elias stared at the screen, his face, still, his hands steady. He gave the order with just a nod, and the fleet moved. Deliverance led the charge, flying without sound, dodging mines with ease, cutting through black space like a knife. Through oil behind it came the storm ships, the hidden ones, the ones trained in cold and quiet, made for this one task: strike without mercy, vanish without trace. On the edge of that stronghold, alarms blared, languages screamed, cannons fired blindly into empty dark, and then the walls shook as fire bloomed from within, not from attack, but from betrayal. One of their own agents, a human sleeper, burned their core from inside, while singing an old Earth song about freedom and fury. The battle ended before it began. The stronghold cracked open like an egg, its secrets spilled, its prisoners freed, and among them was a girl no older than 10, from Earth taken years ago, now holding the hand of a soldier who whispered, "You are going home." Back on Titan, the wall of names welcomed new carvings, not of the lost, but of the returned, names long thought dead. Now home again, now free again, and the fire burned brighter. In the stars around them, the humans waited. The council knew. The galaxy knew. The oxygen breathers were awake, and they were not going back to sleep. Above the quiet orbit of Distro Prime, a blue sun burned behind a shattered moon, and from the darkness drifted a message not made of words or sound, but of motion. A human fleet moved like a tide across space, not loud, not wild, just steady and cold, a calm before fire. Inside the main war room of Titan Base, the lights dimmed to crimson. Officers stood at attention screens, glowed with alien signals, layered maps, tracking every known enemy outpost, convoy, and drone. Elias stood at the center, silent, his eyes scanning, without blinking, his breath slow, like a machine that had waited too long to act. Across the table sat Kara, now promoted, now armored, her eyes colder than Europa ice. She had led the strike on Veltron. She had walked through enemy fire like it was rain. She had spoken only once after returning. Earth is done waiting, she had said, and no one argued. The Ember Protocol had reached full ignition, thousands of cells awakened across space, each with its own target, each moving under silent orders. No speeches, no broadcast, just action, silent, clean, relentless. Near the ring world of Arzalek, 5 alien command stations fell in perfect sequence. The attackers left no trail, only a signal burned into the last wall, a symbol of a human face wearing a mask with no mouth beneath it, one word written beneath oxygen. The message was simple: humans were not negotiating, humans were not warning, humans were remembering, and the stars now remembered with them. In the central archive of the Council, a sudden data breach spread through 16 vaults. Old war records vanished, prototype blueprints corrupted, entire histories rewritten not by brute force, but by elegant lines of code, bending through firewalls like wind through grass. The attackers, never seen, only felt. And when the archives reopened, one new file had appeared. Subject: Earth status unknown, threat level ascending. Inside the war, council chamber panic boiled beneath polished floors. Leaders barked at each other, blame swirled, alliances cracked, the methane lords accused the plasma, minds the crystal queen screamed for defense, but no one moved, no one dared attack, because the fleets that vanished never screamed, and the stars were full of watching eyes. Meanwhile, on a dead world called Ralvos, a secret factory, once built for biological experiments, now served new masters. Human agents had taken it without a fight. The AI that ran it had once refused human entry. Now it called them commanders. It had watched its creators fail. It had watched humans rise, and it had chosen. From that factory rose something not seen in council history, a new kind of soldier, not made from metal or bone, but from memory, enhanced humans trained from birth, grown in silence, molded by loss, each one connected through lightspeed links, and shared what they called themselves Ashborn, and they feared nothing. Back on Titan, Elias walked a silent corridor with names glowing on each wall, the lost, the fallen, the ones who had stood when all others bowed. He placed a hand on one name. His mother, a pilot lost during the early raids before Earth, was even invited to the council. He whispered once and moved on. Kara met him at the war deck where a new plan blinked into life. Operation Red Echo. The final phase, not revenge, not victory, not control, something deeper. Elias pointed to 3 systems known for council supply lines, and hidden fleet strike here. And here he said, without raising his voice, the council will fracture, and fear will spread like fire. She nodded once and walked away. Behind her, the screen showed the countdown, less than 20 hours before contact. In the cold black between stars, human fleets shifted, cloaked in stealth bubbles, powered by core engines the council never saw coming. Each ship held only 10 soldiers, 10 minds sharpened like blades, each one ready to cut fast and vanish without echo. Aboard the lead ship, Kara stood at the helm, her eyes fixed on the void ahead. No one spoke, no one needed orders. They had trained for this, they had bled for this. Every breath matched the beat of war, every heartbeat counted down to fire. At the edge of the target system, sensors picked up old mines, alien drones, and walls of plasma turrets, too many for a normal fleet. But humans were not normal. They were the flaw in the map, the variable the aliens mocked until now. Kara gave the signal 3, fingers raised, then curled, then pointed forward. The fleet split into 4 directions, each path a whisper, each move a thread, weaving toward the center like a spider, drawing in prey. The first station fell in silence, its weapons disabled from within, its airlock opened by a signal only humans knew. The second tried to fight, but its turrets turned too late, and the soldiers were already inside, moving through smoke like shadows. The third exploded from the inside, a sabotage charge planted by a maintenance bot that had been human-coded 5 years ago. Across the galaxy, the council gasped, watching systems blink out, ships vanish, stations fall with no trace. The warlords shouted for order, for answers, for hope, but there was none, because the humans had become something else, something worse than enemy. They had become memory, turned sharp. Back on Titan, the wall glowed brighter. More names returned from lost ships. Prisoners rescued, agents found alive, and places thought dead. Elias watched the new names appear and said nothing, only placed a new marker at the top of the wall, a simple line that read, no longer prey. At the far edge of known space, a last stronghold stood, ancient, deadly, defended by tech the council believed untouchable, and so the humans went there too, not with fleets, but with one ship to deliverance, its engine silent, its crew made of Ashborn, its mission simple: to end what the council had started. They dropped from warp inside the stronghold field, their stealth broken on purpose. Alarms screamed, plasma towers turned and opened fire, and hit nothing, for the ship moved like a ghost through light, dodging death and landing without sound. The Ashborn moved fast through fire and metal, planting charges, setting beacons, disabling reactors. The defense AI tried to fight back, but saw something it had never seen: human will without fear, without pause. It blinked, and it died. When the stronghold exploded, its shockwave spread across 10 systems, and with it a message sent in every council tongue: we are not oxygen breathers, we are the end of silence. And the galaxy listened. The stronghold was gone, nothing remained but drifting pieces of metal and radiation shadows that twisted around the dying stars. Nearby ships passed and stopped and turned away, Without speaking, the message was clear: no one owned that part of space now, except the humans and the silence they had brought with them. Back on Earth, the skies burned with color, not from fire or war, but from data lights carrying the stories of what had happened across the stars. Mothers held their children close as broadcasts spoke of victories in cold systems. Fathers wept in silence as names once marked lost appeared again. Teachers stood in classrooms with tears in their eyes, reading from new books filled with heroes once mocked by the galaxy and now feared by it. Elias walked alone in the night past old ruins of buildings once broken during Earth's first defense training camps, now stood where rubble used to be. Engines roared in the skies, carrying new recruits to the stars. Behind him were monuments carved with names stretching higher than trees. Ahead of him stood a new gate etched with a human flag, and beneath it the words, "Never forget, never kneel, never stop." Deep within the Terran Strategic Command Center, Kara met with a circle of advisors, generals, hackers, diplomats, scientists, not one of them older than 50. Every one of them had lost something to the Council, and none had come to talk about peace. They studied new maps, new weaknesses, old Council trade lines now exposed, because fear makes even the oldest powers sloppy. Across the border worlds, the shift was starting. Old allies of the Council began pulling back, some sending secret messages to Earth, others simply going dark out of fear. The oxygen breathers had changed. They were no longer weak, no longer small, and worst of all, they were patient. On the world of Kryden, where methane lakes bubbled beneath a red sky, a secret gathering took place. A dozen species met in silence, their eyes glowing with worry. They spoke not of counterattacks, but of surrender, of exile, of hiding from a force they could not understand, because the humans did not conquer. They erased, they left nothing but memory. At the same time, in the asteroid city of Vorn Delta, a human diplomat stood before the Neutral Council, once banned from entry, now invited. With trembling hands, the council members offered a treaty not of peace, but of permission. They wanted trade, not war. They wanted distance, not friendship. They wanted safety. The human did not smile. He simply nodded, took the datapad, and left behind a black card marked with a white mask and the word oxygen. Nothing more was said. Above the burned skies, of Veltran, remnants of the Council Navy gathered, hoping to form a wall, a line of defense against what they called the creeping dark. But humans were not attacking with ships anymore. They were attacking with whispers, with codes, with alliances forged in shadows, with species the Council had long ignored. And now, those forgotten races turned to Earth for leadership. The Ashborn spread further, each cell hidden, each action quiet. They destroyed slave markets on the moon world's Acalant. They disabled mind control systems used by the gas lords. They freed entire populations with a single command pulse from orbit. Their faces were never seen, their names never known, only their silence left behind. Inside Titan Command, Elias met with Kara and the new AI born from the stolen Council cores. It had no name, only purpose. It spoke in a voice like wind wrapped in thunder, its thoughts faster than light, its loyalty unbroken. Elias asked it one question: what do they fear most? And the AI answered, they fear becoming human. The next operation was larger, bolder. It was not about destruction, but exposure. A signal sent into the heart of the Council homeworld, broadcasting secrets, crimes, cover-ups, truths buried under centuries of lies. It showed how Earth was denied Council membership because of fear, not weakness, how human ships were attacked first, how peace was never an option. Galactic networks exploded with debate. Citizens once loyal, now uncertain. Trust vanished. Old leaders forced to resign. Young rebels rose to power, chanting for change, using human phrases. Oxygen now meant strength. It meant survival. But Elias was not finished. The next move would end the war, not with fire, but with something colder, a gathering he called the Reckoning. Every race, once oppressed, once mocked, once used by the Council, was invited to a secret world newly terraformed by human tech. Once a dead rock, now a place of green oceans and crystal skies. They arrived in silence from every corner of the stars. Elias stood before them, not in armor, not in robes, but in simple clothes marked with the Earth seal. He told no lies, he made no promises. He said only this: you have seen what we can do, you have felt what we can be. Now choose, stand with the old or walk with us. And the stars held their breath. Every race stood with him. On that world, a new council was born, not ruled by fear, but by action, not by age, but by memory. Earth was the first chair, the others were equal, every decision shared. but one rule stood above all: never forget the past and never become what you once feared. Back in the ruins of the original Galactic Council Hall, now empty, a single drone hovered and played a message from Earth, a simple broadcast that echoed through the hollow halls. We were just oxygen breathers, and you laughed, and now we breathe louder than your silence. And then the lights dimmed and never came back. The new council world stood bright in the center of what was once called the Dead Sector, a place abandoned by all powers long ago, now filled with life. Towers of glass and stone rose from the earth, powered by clean energy and shielded by human tech. Gardens grew on the roofs, and alien children played together without fear. Skies shimmered with peaceful ships, trading knowledge, food, and stories across stars that once saw only war and silence. Elias stood at the edge of a balcony above the great chamber, watching the sunrise on a united world. Behind him, the chamber buzzed with voices, not angry or loud, but filled with purpose. Each species had a seat, each voice had weight, and humans no longer sat at the edge of the room now. They sat at the center, and no one laughed. Kara entered holding a tablet, her eyes sharp and alert, her movements calm. She handed Elias the report, a list of new signals coming from old council vaults, hidden weapons, emergency plans long buried under layers of secrecy, now exposed by the AI networks Earth had unleashed. Elias read in silence, then nodded. He knew the war was not over, not truly. There were still shadows, still claws waiting in dark places, but they would face them together now. On the edge of the Arkan Nebula, a council remnant ship drifted, its engines cold, its crew silent. One last admiral sat in darkness, staring at a cracked emblem, once proud, now meaningless. He remembered how they laughed at humans, how they saw them as temporary, as small, as forgettable. Now his fleet was gone, his world broken, his orders empty. He raised a glass to the silence and whispered a name no one else would hear. Meanwhile, across frontier colonies, small human outposts expanded, working side by side with alien settlers, building new homes and growing food in dirt never touched by Earth. Winds, laughter echoed between huts and domes as children of different species played under twin suns, learning each other's games and making up new ones. Words like unity and peace were no longer dreams. They were lessons taught in morning school and lived each day. On the diplomatic front, Earth began opening embassies for the first time in its history, not as servants, not as merchants, but as leaders. Old species sent gifts, rare minerals, strange art, songs from cultures hidden for ages. Some offered apologies in quiet meetings, others asked for guidance and strategy, hoping to avoid becoming the next in line for extinction. Elias and his circle accepted every gift, but made one thing clear: Earth would never rule through fear, only through strength and memory. The Ashborn continued to work in the background, their missions now focused on defense, stopping secret attacks from rogue warlords, intercepting biological weapons before they launched, rescuing slaves from forgotten mines and space stations. Each success left a mark, a new alliance, a saved life, a sign that oxygen breathers were not just warriors, they were protectors. In the void where the first human ship had been destroyed years ago, a monument floated silent and cold, a ring of names carved in crystal, spinning slowly around a beacon that pulsed with soft light. It was a place of memory and honor, visited often by pilots and diplomats, a reminder of what had been lost and what had been built from the ashes. Human culture began to spread, not through force, but curiosity. Aliens danced to Earth music, recited Earth poetry, watched Earth stories, and added their own touch. Movies were dubbed into 50 languages, books translated into clicks, hisses, colors, even smells. A galaxy that once ignored Earth now carried its dreams in their hearts. Yet not all shadows were gone. A distant signal reached Earth, a message from beyond the known sectors, a voice speaking in tones not seen in any archives, old, powerful, strange. It did not threaten, only asked a question: who awakened the oxygen fire? And the council watched in silence as Earth began scanning unknown space, preparing once more, not in fear, but in readiness. Elias returned to his hometown for the first time in years, walking quiet streets beneath tall trees that had survived the first attack. People waved, children followed him, laughing, asking questions about space and war and peace. He smiled, answered gently, and walked on until he reached the hill where the stars were brightest. There he sat alone for a time, letting the wind carry thoughts heavier than metal and older than war. He thought of the first day in the council chamber, the laughter, the insults, the silence that followed the first strike. He thought of his team, of Kara, of the fallen, of the broken, and the reborn. He looked at the stars and whispered, "We are still breathing, and they know it now." Back in orbit, the new flagship Ignis Terra moved into position, larger than any ship before, powered by technology born from Earth and shaped by alien minds. It carried diplomats, scientists, soldiers, and explorers. Its hull glowed with stories etched in light, and every room bore the names of those who never returned. It was not a ship of war, but of memory and message, a voice across the stars. On the bridge, Kara stood with the new captain, a former rebel from a gas giant, once ruled by council chains. She gave the order, and the ship jumped, not to attack, not to conquer, but to explore, to learn, to offer the galaxy a new chapter written in shared breath and open hands. In the council chamber, the new generation spoke, young leaders from every species, debating without fear, disagreeing with respect, laughing not at each other, but with each other, learning what the old ones had forgotten, that strength was not in power alone, but in understanding. As the sun set and the monument whirled, the stars came alive above a sky no longer ruled by fear. 1,000 ships moved in peace across trade routes once mined and guarded by silence. 100 worlds glowed with light from Earth and beyond, and in the heart of it, all the oxygen breathers breathed still. They were not a nightmare anymore, they were a promise. And the galaxy had finally woken up to listen.